Okay, go ahead, Susie.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Susie Cohen Crumpler. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Executive Director of the Cal Alumni Association at UC Berkeley. I am a white female with brown hair, and this evening I am wearing a blue blazer, a Berkeley blue blazer with gold buttons. And it's wonderful to be here this evening. I am thrilled to be here hosting all of you for our fourth edition of Cal for All. Tonight, we focus on building an inclusive STEM pipeline from education to industry. Cal for All is a collaboration between the Cal Alumni Association, Cal Alumni chapters, our campus partners, and alumni leaders across the globe. This is a virtual series, and it is aimed at creating a more inclusive alumni community. We bring together Cal alumni from diverse backgrounds to discuss diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and justice. DEIBJ. So if you all have joined us for a previous edition of Cal for All, welcome back. Thank you so much for your continued participation in this very important program. We appreciate that you're returning this evening to join us again. And to those of you who are joining us for the first time, we welcome you to this space to listen, to learn, and also to ask questions. Tonight, we will explore DEIBJ from the perspectives of leaders in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, academic and corporate arenas. Tonight will also be the final installment of Cal for All for the 2023-2024 academic calendar, but we plan to be back with more invigorating discussions in fall 2024. So I hope you will join us again then for more exciting speakers and conversations and dialogue within our community. To our speakers, our panelists, our facilitators, we are honored that you are here this evening, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming discussion. So thank you, and I will now pass it over to Joanna Jojo Acquire, who will be sharing our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Susie. We recognize that Berkeley sits on the territory of Huchun, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the historic and sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community and diversity, we have a responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. As members of the Berkeley community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we stand, but also we recognize that the Muwekma Ohlone people are alive and flourishing members of the Berkeley and broader Bay Area communities today. We ask you to consider doing some research around what land you find yourself on by using the link just shared, native-land.ca. Thank you, Susie. Back to you.
Thank you, Jojo. It is now my pleasure to introduce the president of the Cal Alumni Association Board of Directors, Kirk Tramble. Kirk brings over 20 years of corporate experience to CAA's board. He earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, EECS, from Berkeley in 1993, and an MBA from the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College. In his professional life, Kirk has gained extensive experience working at Chevron, Oracle, Microsoft, Apple, Nitro Inc., and most recently, Kazada LLC. Kirk also serves as a key member of the Black Engineering and Science Alumni Club, BSAC. We have a lot of acronyms. Kirk is an absolutely wonderful president and alumni volunteer, and I'm so appreciative of all of his efforts. Because of his background in STEM, Kirk will be doing us the honor this evening of introducing our keynote speaker, Dean Tsu-Jae King Liu, and fireside chat host, Cathy Han. Thank you, Kirk, and to all of you, go Bears.
Thank you, Susie. Hello, everyone. I'm Kirk Tramble, class of 93, parent of a 2018 and parent of a freshman wrapping up his first year, 2027. And I serve as the president of the Cal Alumni Association Board of Directors. It is a privilege to lead and make a difference in our alumni community. Without further ado, welcome Dean Tsu-Jae King Liu. Dean Liu earned her Bachelor of Science, Masters of Science, and Ph.D. degrees in electrical engineering from Stanford University. From 1992 to 1996, she was a member of research staff at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, or Xerox PARC, where she worked on thin film transistor technology for large area electronics applications. In 1996, she joined the faculty of the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, fondly referred to as EECS, at UC Berkeley, where she has taught and conducted research on semiconductor devices and technologies. She began her tenure as Dean of the College of Engineering in July 2018. Dean Liu has authored or co-authored over 550 publications and holds close to 100 patents. She's a fellow of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, or the IEEE, and the National Academy of Inventors, as well as an elected member of the U.S. National Academy of Engineers. She also serves on the board of directors for Intel Corporation and for MaxLinear, Inc. Her research contributions have been recognized by many awards, including the DARPA Significant Technical Achievement Award for her role in the development of the FinFET, an advanced transistor design used in all leading-edge computer chips today. In addition to excelling in research, Dean Liu has demonstrated a strong commitment to enhancing the educational experience of students. As dean, she has bolstered programs to support the academic success and well-being of both undergraduate and graduate engineering students, including supporting the success of women and students from underrepresented minority groups and first-generation students. Dean Liu's most recent initiative is to renovate and expand the Berkeley Engineering Student Center to create more welcoming and inclusive spaces for students to learn, discover, and innovate. This construction project is slated to break ground in spring of 2023, so that project has started. And then Dean Liu has also been spearheading a nationwide effort called the American Semiconductor Academy, ASA, initiative to establish a collaborative and inclusive national network for microelectronics education to meet the workforce development needs of the U.S. microelectronics industry. For her outstanding contributions in education, Dean Liu was honored with the IEEE Electron Devices Society Education Award. Please join me in welcoming Dean Tsu-Jae King Liu.
Well, thank you so much, Kirk. Really an honor and a pleasure to join you and all of the California Alumni Association members here. You know, one of the most enjoyable parts of my job as dean is to meet alumni, to learn about their experiences here at Berkeley, what made a difference in their experience, in their careers. Like, what are we doing at Berkeley? What can we do better to enhance the success of future engineering leaders? So It's really always a pleasure to see Kirk here because he's a Berkeley engineering alum and doing very well. So I thought I could just start with a few remarks to introduce myself so you all get to know me. And I know Cathy Han has some questions, so we'll have a fireside chat. So I'll just take a few moments. So even though I earned all of my degrees from Stanford, I've spent many more years at Berkeley. And indeed, I think Berkeley truly has shaped me into the leader that I am today. Also, of course, I've been influenced tremendously by my husband, David, who is a Berkeley EECS alum. Okay, so we have connections. So I have a lot of familial connections to Berkeley, and I have a tremendous respect and love for Berkeley and all things Berkeley. So in engineering, you might know, or people probably know that engineers like to solve problems, but we have a purpose, a goal in solving those problems, and that's really to benefit people and society. But we want to keep in mind that the society we serve is diverse. It comprises many people who are not exactly like ourselves. And so this is why I chose to step up as dean, because I saw that we were making good progress in increasing the diversity of students and faculty, but I wanted to accelerate that progress. And also I wanted to make sure that every member of our community feels like they're supported, they're respected, valued, supported to succeed, so that they can thrive and reach their full potential. Because that's the only way that we as a community can reach our full collective potential and have maximum impact, positive impact in the world. So Kirk mentioned that we are building a new engineering center because the cultural transformation that we have been working on since I've been dean, we want to see it embodied in a brand new, welcoming and inclusive engineering center where students from across the campus will be welcome to come, learn together with us, discover, and innovate together. And this new center will also house our entrepreneurship program. So we want to translate our innovations into products into society as quickly as possible. Berkeley has a strong tradition of impact, excellence and impact, and we want to cultivate a strong tradition of inclusive excellence, because I think inclusive excellence will be, well, if we can get inclusion right, then our excellence will only be greater and have greater impact. So I'm happy to start with a conversation with Cathy, and I look forward to engaging you all in discussion, and hopefully we can learn from each other tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will be passing the baton to our host, Cathy Han. Cathy is the Chief Learning Officer of IFC Global, a sustainability advisory and leadership development firm. A Berkeley, Columbia, and London School of Business and Economics and Political Science alum, Cathy is a strong champion for inclusive economic development, sustainability, innovation, future of tech, and community empowerment. Cathy has experience in innovation and consulting in education, management, nonprofits, and board of directors across New York, Silicon Valley, and Asia Pacific. She currently serves as the lead DEIBJ Alumni Chapter Advisor for the Cal Alumni Association, board secretary for the Cal Alumni Club of New York, as well as many other leadership roles in the community. Cathy is a millennial mom with personal experiences in single parenthood, and she is driven by the mission to empower holistic wellness and sustainable growth for families and communities. Please join me in welcoming Cathy Han.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirk, for your kind introduction. Thank you, Dean Liu, for sharing with us your transformative work and impact at College of Engineering and beyond. We'd love to learn more about your remarkable leadership journey and forward-looking strategy to forge a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. So without further ado, we would like to start our tonight's conversation. We would love to learn, start with, learning about your personal journey as a girl and as a woman in STEM. Could you share with us some of your challenges that you have faced along the way, and how have those experiences influenced your approach to leadership and advocacy for DEI in STEM?
Well, thanks so much, Cathy, for that relatively easy first question to get me warmed up. When I reflecting on my experience as a student, this was at Stanford in engineering, I really don't recall that there were any other women in engineering courses that I took. And by nature, I'm an introvert and shy. So throughout my undergraduate experience, I really didn't socialize or like interact too much with my other classmates because they're all guys. And I was, so I ended up learning primarily on my own. And of course, engineering is not that easy and it involves a lot of teamwork. So I think I did not get as much out of my education as I could have, and I could have done better in my classes if I felt like I was as a greater sense of belonging and inclusion in the classroom. Of course, I had friends outside of the classroom, outside of engineering. But then when I was getting ready to graduate, I didn't feel like I didn't have confidence that I knew enough, was skilled enough in engineering. So I stayed on for a master's degree, and at Stanford, it's relatively easy. You just take some more courses, pay more tuition, and they give you the master's. But I served as a teaching assistant during that time to help support that. And I got to know some PhD students, including my husband. And that's when I started to find community. And I thought, oh, like they're doing good things that are going to help people in society. And they seem to be enjoying it. And I knew that it could lead to a good career. So that's how I ended up deciding to stay on for a PhD. And I really enjoyed teaching and doing research. And that's what happened. So if I hadn't really connected with people like my husband that I could relate to and who were supportive of me, pursuing graduate study, I would definitely not be where I am today. And all along my career, I've had mentors and advocates, my thesis advisor and my thesis co-advisor, faculty at Berkeley after I joined. They really had to encourage me to even apply for a faculty position and to take on more leadership roles. So I've been very fortunate, really blessed to have people who, believed in me and supported me all through my career. And for that, I'm very grateful. And Berkeley being a very welcoming, supportive community, I'm not sure if I would have succeeded as well if I went to another university. And, Kirk mentioned hundreds of publications, the many patents, all that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have outstanding students and faculty colleagues to collaborate with all through these years.
Thank you, Dean Liu, for sharing your personal story and insight. It must have been difficult to be the only woman in the room. So your journey is truly inspiring and underscores the importance of representation in STEM. So as the first female engineering dean for Berkeley Engineering, the world's top engineering school, your leadership undoubtedly has led a profound impact. Could you elaborate on some of your key initiatives that have shaped the direction of the college and inspire future STEM leaders?
Sure. Well, my husband was a student here, and when he was a student in the 80s, late 70s and 80s, it was more cutthroat, more like survive, right, rather than thrive. And so I knew coming in that I wanted to make sure that the student experience was enhanced. So we've started many programs actually to support students' academic success and also their well-being. So we've invested in having Tang Center counselors actually stationed in the College of Engineering neighborhood. For undergrads, we have separate professional psychological counselors for graduate students as well. So we know that engineering is pretty rigorous, and especially after the pandemic, a lot of students really need more support. But also programs to help students develop the soft skills, communication, multicultural competency. These are programs we started after I was dean, and then a mentorship program. So ideally, every single student who wants a mentor should have at least one mentor. It could be a peer mentor, it could be an alumnus or alumna. It would be fantastic to engage more alumni. And the idea is that we identify and we recognize outstanding mentors, celebrate them, and also learn from those mentors, like what makes them a good mentor, because we want everybody to learn to be a good mentor. So my hope is that every single Berkeley engineering student, by the time they graduate, they themselves are going to be effective mentors. So they've received mentorship, they've learned how to give back, they learn how to be effective mentors, so they can raise other people up to succeed. And this way, it's like paying forward. It's like a virtuous cycle. And I think because engineering is all about involves teamwork, teams of the diversity of people. If you imagine if you as a team member or as a team leader can bring out the best in every single member of your team, of course, you're going to be more successful. And what we want is our graduates to go on and be as successful as they can be, because it reflects well on us, and it's better for people in society.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those impactful initiatives, Dean Liu. It's clear that Berkeley Engineering is at the forefront of DEI in STEM through interdisciplinary collaboration and inclusive innovation. Could you shed light on some specific success stories and their transformative impact, especially on the society?
Well, I can refer to like my research experience. This FinFET, the fin-shaped transistor that Kirk mentioned. I think most people have heard about Moore's Law. So Moore's Law is the concept of advancing semiconductor technology steadily every year. And this enables the computing industry, computing, information processing industry. So that's communications, computing, storage of information, and so on. Has enabled the computing to improve at an exponential pace over the last few decades. And that's what has led to the age of AI that we're in, because computers today can process they can collect and process large amounts of data in real time, and that can inform decisions. So I think the FinFET transistor, that project, that was in 1998, so before the turn of the century or the millennium. At that time, the most advanced technology that was used to manufacture integrated circuit chips, these microprocessors, was about quarter micron generation technology, so 250 nanometers. That's much smaller than the width of your hair. Your width of your hair is, let's say, 50 microns, so that's many times smaller. So at that time, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, had a program director trying to say, okay, let's see, if we want to continue Moore's Law for another more than 10 years, we need to be able to make transistors 10 times smaller than the state of the art today. So that means 25 nanometers. So a team at Berkeley, so there were 3 professors involved. There were, like, the first student to publish on the FinFET was my PhD student, a woman from China. But we involved researchers from companies. So we had visiting researchers from Hitachi Central Research Labs, from Toshiba in Japan, which used to be a leading state-of-the-art semiconductor company, IBM. So it's a huge team of people, all different from around the world, not gender balanced, but gender diverse. And we all worked together and we achieved more than people were expecting. My student published transistors that were smaller than 20 nanometers in our university research lab. And over the next few years, we demonstrated that it's scalable, it's reproducible. And after that, companies like Intel took it on. Professor Hu, who was the lead faculty on this project, he ended up working at TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Center, for a few years. So he took that FinFET technology to TSMC. Some of our researchers ended up working at IBM and at Intel. So all these major leading semiconductor companies, where we translated that technology to the industry pretty rapidly, because we had a large, diverse team that was international. So then when we finished our work, they went back to where they were and propagated the technology pretty quickly. And I think because of the FinFET innovation, our cell phones and computers, they're much more energy efficient and low cost for the level of performance. And that really has had transformative impact on society. If you think about how much we depend on our cell phones, our Apple Watches, our Fitbits, our things at home. We're talking to Siri and Alexa, and for work and for business, right? We depend on computers and laptops and internet and so on and so forth. So I think that's a good example of, if you bring a diverse team of people together, you can accomplish more than anybody could have imagined.
Great, thank you. The success story you mentioned are truly inspiring and demonstrate the power of a collaboration. So in light of this, could you discuss any strategic partnership with industry leaders and bridging the DI gap between education and industry within STEM fields?
Yes, so we're very blessed, fortunate at Berkeley to be very near, or actually part of, Silicon Valley. I grew up in Los Altos, which is kind of close to Silicon Valley. So that's how I was influenced also when I was young to go into electrical engineering. I have been focusing on building stronger partnerships with industry, not only the semiconductor industry, but just broader engineering companies. I think that's really important because we want to make sure that our students, engineering is a difficult curriculum, and we know that students are more motivated, inspired to persist if they have opportunities to gain hands-on experience in industry, to see like how the knowledge that we're knowledge and skills we're trying to impart to them actually have real application, and how they can make a positive impact on society. So I think close partnership with industry is key to make sure that our students continue to be inspired and motivated, and also they can earn some income to help support their studies. I think in engineering that's just natural. We actually at Berkeley, we've a lot of our faculty and our alumni, as people know here, have started companies. In fact, they've started entire new industries. So we have a strong tradition of collaboration with and creating new industries. That's part of the Berkeley engineering brand, I think.
Very wonderful. Thank you for elaborating on those partnerships, Dean Liu. As Cal for all participants are eager to bring best practices back to their workplace and community, could you also share with us some of the specific steps or programs Berkeley Engineering has initiated to develop inclusive leadership skills among students, alumni, researchers, faculty, and administrators to broaden their reach and impact?
Yeah, okay. So we've created programs for students and for faculty. A challenge is to get people to take advantage of those resources, but it's nice when the faculty who do participate in programs. So I like to think of this as a pot to encourage and inspire people with carrots rather than sticks. So we have run for a few years a program called Empower. So my view is that we would like to empower people to be agents for positive change. So part of empowerment is to first realize, to do some self-introspection, to understand what motivates us, what has shaped our views, our biases, and just to be aware that we all have biases, and then to be aware that they can influence the way we interact with people, the decisions we make. So the first thing is to realize that, okay, we have biases. Then how do we make sure that we don't let them result in inequitable outcomes, right? And then how, like, let's say so-called microaggressions, they happen a lot of times unintentionally. How do we recognize when something like that is happening that might be discouraging somebody from feeling like they belong and they're valued? The training is important. Working with an interactive theater, actually, training is important to make sure that people recognize that when these things happen, and also to give them practice. When you see it happen, what should you say and do to just inform the aggressor, the microaggressor, and also to express support for the person who's the target of the microaggression. So we don't want to make people feel bad about it. It's more like, hey, this happens, it's natural. These are the things we can do to help interrupt microaggressions and support each other. So that's an example of something we've developed for faculty and staff. For students, I think a lot of it is really, they're still developing as people, right? So cultivating in students a growth mindset, so they don't presuppose that certain types of people are only able to do certain things, right? That the brain is plastic and everybody can learn, maybe at different rates, or people have a diversity of backgrounds and experiences, so that also contributes to how fast they can learn a new topic. So I think really cultivating empathy in students, and I've done that in different ways. I'll give you one example. At Berkeley, every single student instructor, like a teaching assistant, before they serve as a TA for the first time, they need to take a class to train them how to teach effectively. And so for quite some time, when I was actually department chair of EECS, I taught this course. And this, of course, engineering is dominated by men. And so how do you bring up this topic of bias and discrimination? So the first week or so for the class, we cover basic things like how to engage students and support them, encourage them to ask questions, so on and so forth. Then after a couple of weeks, they come back, they share their experiences. And so I go through the classroom a little bit, asking people, how's your experience been? How have you applied the things that we learned? And then after the first 10 minutes or so, I stop and I say, okay, how many of you have noticed that I've been behaving in a very sexist manner over the last 10 minutes? And of course, people don't realize that. And then we stop and think, okay, so these are, I tell the students, these are the things I've did differently for women who spoke up versus men. My body language is different. I didn't really look at them when they were answering. I turned away. And when they spoke up, I might have just nodded and moved on to the next person. In contrast, for the men, I thank them, call them by name, pay attention to them when they're talking, and then like kind of ask a question to continue what they're saying. So then people realize, okay, these are things that I did differently for the women versus the men. So that's one thing. And then the second question is, why didn't anybody notice? Or why didn't anybody speak up? And so then we have a discussion. And then it's heart-wrenching, but the women would say inevitably, well, I didn't think that my idea was, you thought that was really a good idea or a valid comment. And then the men in the room can hear this, right? And then they realize, okay, even little things like this that might not be noticeable, the impact they have on the people, right? The women, it's like real. And so the men realize, okay, if I started the class saying, okay, today we're going to talk about implicit bias, then they might just like be more defensive, saying, okay, I'm not biased. I don't really need to pay close attention. So by just showing them how easy it is, how natural it is to be like doing things that might inadvertently be discouraging people, I think just increasing awareness and then making people aware that, hey, they have to watch out for these kinds of microaggressions. So that's just one example of how I've been trying to cultivate empathy in students. I started another course called The Art of STEM Communication, which also gives students a chance to write stories, articles, and give presentations to non-engineers about some research project that they are interested in to learn about at Berkeley. And through that course, that one semester course, they learn empathy because they learn, okay, how do you write a story or give a presentation that will appeal to people who are not like you?
Okay,
and that also gives free advertisement for our researchers to the general public about their research.
Absolutely. Those are really wonderful ideas and best practices that we can all take back to our workplace and community. So thank you for sharing those. Before we conclude tonight's fireside chat, it would be great to hear more about your leadership vision for the future. Now, after 1 year of your open letter calling to action upon the passing of the Chips and Science Act, what do you see as the top priorities and continued challenges to cultivate diverse engineering pipeline?
Yeah, so Berkeley, it's a privilege to be at a leading college of engineering. So everything that I've learned that we find to work well for our engineering students, I do share with other engineering deans across the country, across the UC system, across the Pac-12, across the country. What I think now, especially in my area, semiconductors, the talent gap is projected to be so large that no single small group of universities can meet that gap. In fact, I had testified in Congress that every university and college needs to at least double the number of graduates it produces for the industry within the next 5 or so years. And Secretary Raimondo upped that to be like, she wants to see schools triple the number of graduates we produce for the industry. That doesn't mean we have to educate more students, but just attract more and guide them towards that industry. And so if every single university in this country needs to step up to contribute to close that talent gap, how do we do that? How can Berkeley help to achieve that goal for our country? Because if our country is not this secure and prosperous, then we all going to eventually but we're going to suffer, right? So I've been advocating for, and our Berkeley faculty have been really exemplars. Like whatever we do at Berkeley, our courses, if we develop them in collaboration with industry, and we know that the students who complete our courses go on to successful jobs in the industry. Why don't we package and share the curriculum and help get other universities and colleges learn to teach the courses similarly as we do? Of course, they can adapt it for their own students because they know their own students the best. We need to empower faculty at other universities and colleges, our local community colleges, our state universities, so that they can contribute to solving this, our nation's STEM talent gap.
Right, wonderful. Your insight into the STEM future are really invaluable. As we strive for more inclusive engineering landscape, how do you envision working with Berkeley's alumni leaders to advance engineering for all? And that will be our final question for tonight.
Okay. Yeah.
Questions from the audience.
Alumni are such a, I mean, you are the largest segment of our community, actually, right? The Berkeley community, the alumni is the largest.
Yeah.
Our campus community is small compared to the 500,000 alumni around the world. So I think what we've learned, especially for students from underserved backgrounds or from underrepresented groups, mentorship, these so-called wraparound services. So mentorship is really can make all the difference. Having somebody to encourage you, to share their stories, and to connect our students with opportunities to let's say gain experience in industry, that can make a world of difference. And I think more and more people are realizing these earn and learn programs would be helpful. So if there are alumni who are out there who are willing to serve as mentors, that can make all the difference. And yeah, just making our students realize that they're part of a larger, supportive, welcoming, inclusive community. I think that would be, I would be truly grateful if we had more alumni who are willing to spend a little bit of their time to help our current generation students. And this actually will inspire our students. Hey, when I become an alumnus or alumna, I should be giving back, paying it forward the same way to the next generation, right? So it's a virtuous cycle. You don't have to do this forever, right? It's like the people you mentor eventually should become good mentors themselves.
Great, wonderful, thank you. I think that's definitely something we can work on together through the partnership with CAA. So thank you for that. So we actually have a few questions from the Q&A chat. If you
sure.
Okay with your time, so I will start with the first question from the audience. So faculty often say that they learn from their students, and this is a great part of teaching at UC Berkeley. Can you give an example of how you learn from your students?
Yeah. When I was an assistant professor, I think I was teaching semiconductor devices and or my introductory to electronics. And I did have a student come up to me and to tell me, students have different modes of learning. And I learned this after I started to teach that course, to teach TAs how to teach effectively. So that's the first thing I remember learning. It's like, oh, like students learn different ways. Like some are more visually oriented, some are more, orally oriented, and so on and so forth. So I didn't appreciate that right at the start when I started teaching. Yeah, I think I must have gotten a little impatient because I had a different class where I explained things maybe during office hours more than once, and I said something kind of insensitive like, "This is really not that hard." I mean, something like that. And then the student said, "Yeah, it's not that hard if you've been working on it for years," right? Because I've been an expert in the semiconductor industry, and I realized, oh yeah, you're right. The first time I learned this stuff, I didn't get it. I actually had to take it as a grad student again and actually serve as a TA before I actually got it. So, students at Berkeley, I really appreciate the opportunity to learn together with them. Of course, in research, we're always discovering new knowledge, exploring new technologies together. So that's always been a really rewarding experience for me.
Wonderful, thank you. And another question, so how does college engineering interact with Letter of Science and college, the COC and Haas and other units within Berkeley to help move tech development forward, given students around the education and take advantage of the proximity of so many different programs? Does the incoming chancellor's experience promoting entrepreneurship tie in well with the engineering's future plans?
Oh yeah, that's a great question, and absolutely the answer is yes. When Rich Lyons was the dean of the Haas School, he collaborated with the dean of the School of Engineering, College of Engineering, to establish some programs collaboratively. So we have the Management, Entrepreneurship, and Technology program, MET program, that allows students, these are actually Regents and Chancellor Scholars who are chosen for this program so that they can complete 2 bachelor's degrees, one in engineering and one in business within 4 years. And during the summers, they have experiences like working for startups and so on. So that program was started in part by Rich Lyons. And we have the equivalent at the master's level, professional masters of engineering, together with the MBA, 2 degrees, 2 masters in 2 years. So that's an outstanding example of how we collaborate with a Haas school. And I think that's really important because when I started a startup with my husband, we had to hire, we had to have somebody on our team who was experienced in business. And I'd say that didn't work out so well. Like if we had each some business background, maybe we could have done better with our startup, which eventually was acquired by a company. But looking back, it's like we want our students to succeed as much as possible, as soon as possible. And these joint programs really help. With the College of Chemistry, we have a joint program in molecular science and simulation software. It's an online degree for working professionals because software engineering is so important for every field of science, including in the College of Chemistry. In Letters and Science, we recently started a program called the Yardi. It's named after Anant Yardi, the donor, Y-A-R-D-I, Yardi Scholars. So it's also Regents Chancellor Scholars, engineering majors together with social science majors, especially political science majors. We want them to meet regularly, interact. They have some special programming because we want future leaders in government to be appreciative and person in technology, and we want engineering leaders to actually be able to interact with future, government leaders, like different types of leaders, so political leaders. So that's an example of how we've been collaborating with the College of Letters and Science. Of course, there are a lot of collaborations with the hard sciences like physics and math and so on, but also with the biological sciences and bioengineering.
Great, thank you. We have a couple more questions.
Great.
Time permits. So what can we do to get young women to be interested in STEM before college?
That's a great question. There have been studies showing that somehow the interest in STEM might drop from middle school to high school. So we know that middle school is where we really need to first, at least by middle school, we need to engage them, let them know about engineering. So we have a program called Girls in Engineering that's open to boys and girls, but it really is targeting middle school students to let them know about engineering, all the different types of engineering. And we have a number of programs for high schoolers as well. I think really it's just increasing awareness and supporting programs like the robotics competitions that are popular now, but just having a lot of role models and mentors so that young girls see that women actually can be leaders and very successful in engineering. I think that's really important because they see a lot of, okay, if we can influence social media, that would help as well, but we just need to counteract stereotypes that they might see in other parts of their lives. I think that's the most important thing.
Wonderful. There's a similar question. How do you help students learn and catch up to their typical more well-privileged peers? How do you encourage them to take on STEM later in college careers, for example, when they may feel it is too late?
Okay, great question. So we have summer bridge programs. These are part of the programs that were started long before I became dean, but we've been growing them. Getting a lot of companies care about diversifying their talent pool, their workforce. So they sponsor a lot of these programs. So they're pre-engineering program, prep, and then there's an equivalent program for transfer students from community colleges. So we bring them in the summertime. They actually get to be situated in dorms earlier than everybody else, which is good. And they get to know each other. So they have a sense of community, right? Cohort. And they learn together. We give them crash course in math and computing, because a lot of them might not have taken calculus or pre-calculus in high school, and then physics and so on. So essentially we give them a preview of the courses that they are going to take as freshmen, and then they have a community of support. So that we've shown from anecdotal data that this definitely bolsters their GPA by like 2/3 of a point. Those who from underserved backgrounds who go through prep and T-prep versus those who don't. But also when in the student orientations, when I speak with these students, I try to encourage them by saying, personally, in my view as an engineering leader, and I've worked with many, I've had the privilege of working with many leaders in my career. From my observations, there are certain characteristics of successful leaders. And so I share that with the students. The characteristics are that you have empathy, that you can learn and adapt. And because everything's changing, right? Only change is constant. And good communication skills. That includes listening and also giving and receiving feedback. So I go through this with them. That's based on my own experience. No matter how good your technical skills are, if you don't have those other skills I mentioned, you're not going to be nearly as successful. And so this gives the incoming students, maybe from underserved backgrounds, at least some confidence that they can be successful in engineering and as leaders, because I think they realize, yes, they can learn how to be empathetic and considerate of others. Yes, they can learn. They are interested to learn, and they can learn to be adaptive, and they can learn to improve their communication skills. In other words, if they're confident that they don't need to be straight A students right off the bat to be successful in engineering, then that helps alleviate some of the stress. So the metrics we keep track of that we care about more are graduation rate. Are they graduating within 4 or 6 years, depending if they're transfer or freshmen coming in? The GPAs, you shouldn't really put as much weight on the GPAs. If they have hands-on experience, like in the student club and so on, able to learn how to communicate and work effectively in teams, that ultimately is going to determine how successful they are in engineering and in their careers. So just giving them confidence that, hey, you don't need to be a straight A student or anywhere near a straight A student to be an engineer, to do well to thrive as a Berkeley engineer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dean Liu. We have a couple more questions, but we're short with time, so we will answer the questions offline. So
Okay.
Thank you for your time with us tonight, and thank you for your very insightful remarks.
Thank you.
Your visionary leadership and commitment to diversity and inclusion stand truly serve as a beacon for and inspiration for us all. So we will carry forward your message of empowerment and strive to create a world where engineering is for everyone. So thank you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you all. And go Bears.
Round of virtual applause to our Dean Liu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to introduce our panel moderator, Dr. Colette Patt, for tonight's panel discussion. Dr. Colette Patt is the Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Belonging, and Justice in the College of Computing, Data Science, and Society, and the Mathematical and Physical Science Division, MPS, at the University of California at Berkeley. In her work as a STAN Chief Diversity Officer, she addresses equity and diversity at all levels of university life, including undergrad and graduate, postdoctoral, faculty, leadership, and departmental climate. She also maintains an active research agenda to inform her programmatic work. Her current research project focuses on achieving equitable postdoctoral, faculty, and leadership career outcomes, improving the doctoral experience and approaches to student selection and admission of undergrad science majors at Research University. Dr. Patt directs the Research University Alliance, Identity, Structure, Belonging, and MPS Scholars. Dr. Patt is a triple bear. She received her BA in English and Women's Study, and both her MA and PhD in Social and Cultural Study in Education at UC Berkeley. Let's welcome Dr. Patt and her panel moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cathy. It's such an honor to be here. I am going to dive right into introducing our 3 panelists for this session because they are wonderful people with lots to say, and I like to start to ask them questions and enable the folks who've gathered here to hear from them as soon as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Miller Allen. Dr. Miller Allen is an Oakland native and graduate of Bishop O'Dowd High School. He earned his bachelor's, master's, and PhD degrees in mechanical engineering at UC Berkeley, also a triple bear, where he was an active participant in campus life, especially through his involvement in the Black Engineering and Science Students Association, which is known as BESA on campus, and in its graduate counterpart known as DEIBJ, serving as chapter president of both organizations. In 2019, he co-founded the Black Engineering and Science Alumni Club, which goes by the acronym BESAC, and is an affiliate of the California Alumni Association, and he currently serves as president. Professionally, Miller has been employed at Applied Materials Corporation for 21 years, where he is a senior director of process engineering, leading the productivity group of the Metal Deposition Products Division. He holds over 30 patents, primarily in the field of semiconductor wafer manufacturing equipment technology. Miller enjoys spending time with Tracy, his wife of 22 years, and their two wonderful children, Amelia, age 19, and Mason, age 15. Miller, would you like to say hi?
Sure. Hi. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thanks, Colette, for that great introduction. And thanks. Wow, now my voice is failing. Thanks, Cathy, for inviting me to be on the panel. And it's really an honor to be here with the other panelists and also to get to hear from Dean Liu. And I've had a great relationship working with her over the last few years. Very happy to be here, and I'll look forward to participating in the questions and learning more about the other panelists as well. So thank you.
Welcome, Miller. Our next panelist is Jeff Cho. Dr. Cho is the co-founder and CEO of Sync Computing, a startup focused on automating cloud infrastructure for data and AI workloads to help companies lower costs and hit performance goals. Sync currently works with startups and Fortune 100 companies, which utilize their proprietary machine learning models to dramatically improve their cloud compute efficiency. Jeff received his bachelor's and Ph.D. in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley as a National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellow, which I will say is one of the most competitive fellowships. Afterwards, he was a Battelle postdoctoral scholar at MIT and was an entrepreneurial research fellow at Activate. Prior to Sync, he was a technical staff member at MIT Lincoln Lab. His research interests include high-performance computing, mathematical optimization, and cloud infrastructure. And Jeff, could you say hi to everyone, please? Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. It is an honor to also be amongst the great panelists. As well as I mentioned earlier, I was a former student of now Dean Liu. She was Professor Liu back in the day. So it's great to be here. Looking forward to the discussion.
And welcome, Jeff. And our third panelist, Cathy Han. Cathy Han is a CPA and has an MBA and 20 years of experience within financial services from top global asset management and public accounting firms, and most recently pivoted to technology. She's currently the worldwide sales enablement lead within Microsoft's business applications go-to-market team. Cathy is responsible for landing strategy, enablement, and programming for Microsoft's global sales enablement and operations team. Prior to this role, Cathy was the chief of staff for Microsoft's commercial solution Area's Chief Technology Officer, where she served as an advisor and trusted partner to the CTO of a 300+ member team responsible for innovating solutions that address commercial customer needs. Prior to Microsoft, Cathy was a managing director with Women of the World Endowment, where she led strategy, business operations, and new product development aligned with driving lasting change for women and girls globally through capital investments. Prior to joining that organization, which goes by the acronym WOWE, Ms. Pansy was a managing director of investor relations for Hypatia Capital, where she focused on fundraising and curating Hypatia's investor outreach. Before Hypatia Capital, Ms. Pansy garnered 12 years of experience with BlackRock. Her last position was chief of staff to the global head of BlackRock's institutional client business, where she was responsible for driving progress on strategic projects, formulating business strategy, defining culture, and scaling the operations of the office. Ms. Pansy graduated summa cum laude from Howard University with a BBA in accounting and an MBA in finance from the Haas School of Business here at Berkeley. Welcome, Cathy. Would you like to say hi?
Yeah, so thanks again for the invite and for the opportunity to join this webinar, coming with a very diverse background from the other panelists. So looking forward to answering questions from industry and as an operator in technology.
Welcome to everybody. We'll run through these questions, and some of the panelists will answer some of them. Some may answer all. We'll try to get as much information from the panelists as we can in the next half hour or so. So the first question, and it would be great if everybody could share this, each of the panelists, and we'll just go in order if that's okay with you with the way you were introduced, is could you share a personal story that highlights the importance of DEI or DEIBJ, the B being belonging, the J being justice, in leadership and community, either from your experience at Cal or in your life as a STEM leader? So a personal story that highlights the importance of DEI or DEIBJ. Now, over to you, Miller.
Sure. I would start, again, really happy to be on this panel. Thank you again for the invitation. I would start with kind of my experience getting onto the Berkeley campus. You know, you mentioned the organization BESA, but even before BESA, you know, and in the late 80s, 89, when I came in, Dean Liu mentioned the bridge programs like PrEP and T-PrEP. There was a program put on by, at the time, it was called Minority Engineering Program, pre-Prop 209. And it brought all the students together that were coming in underrepresented in engineering. And we all came in as a cohort and did that pre-work that she mentioned, which, you know, I probably can attest it probably did boost everyone 2/3 of the GPA point, because we went through all of the first semester of calculus and chemistry together and built this cohort. And so you saw, that's where I first met Kirk, actually 30 plus years ago. And you came in with that cohort and you kind of stayed with that cohort, and you had this built-in study group. And also they brought in mentors, they brought in people from industry. IBM was running Project Breakthrough at the time, also to recruit underrepresented students. They came in, they gave a lot of us jobs. I worked there for every summer. So all of these things built on each other to bring this kind of a fabric of both belonging, both, you know, in the case of getting internships, you know, actual financial support. And in the case of the university, just having this like home away from home. I am from Oakland, but being on campus, you know, it was like stepping on to another kind of new world. So I would say, you know, all of those things were really foundational when I came in. And then I always wanted to pay it forward from those experiences and be really active in that those organizations, and, you know, to this day. So yeah, I would say that that's probably where it started, and, you know, where it currently is.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. Obviously, you know, I recognize I am not a minority in the STEM field. I'm definitely the majority. So my personal anecdote here is that, you know, although in the STEM world, I am definitely not a minority, in the rest of society, I am a minority. So it is weird. And one personal example is I actually had kind of a double life when I was in grad school at Berkeley. At nighttime, I used to do a lot of comedy. So I used to do a lot of improv comedy. And when I would literally go from the lab at Berkeley Labs in the clean room, I'd take off my thing, and then I would go to like the comedy theater at night. And I would immediately transition from like majority to super minority, because there are not many like Asian American people in general in comedy. And I think because of that experience, I could easily feel what is it like to be not the majority, and to be like, oh, this person doesn't look like everyone else here. And so I gained a lot of empathy on what does it feel like to be like, oh, I am not, I need to like try a little harder. I have to adapt to, you know, you have to like play a bit of like code switching into like, okay, this community behaves like this, so I need to adapt to that. And so I think that just gave me a lot of empathy. And now in my space, now I'm in the kind of the startup space and hiring. I can kind of empathize a lot. You know, if I understand if you don't look like the rest of the folks, that's fine. And I understand kind of the difficulty. I'll never truly understand it, but I can somewhat empathize what it's like to be kind of fish out of water. Because I did it for almost like 15 years. I did comedy. So I kind of understand that aspect. So that's my kind of personal anecdote.
Thank you, Keitha.
So once again, thank you for the opportunity. And I was trying to think of like a personal, story here, but I think just by nature of being an African-American woman, this topic has always been relevant, right? Irrespective of the industry. And so I've always felt called upon to break down those barriers professionally, right? And so even having spent most of my career in finance and now pivoted to like truly big tech, unfortunately, the disparity is still there, right? Doesn't matter the industry. And so, you know, my role and just my positioning continues. I like what Dr. Liu said about creating that virtuous cycle when it comes to like paying it forward and giving it back. And, you know, I'll say my first 6 months at Microsoft, I landed with like 5 or 6 mentees. And I'm like, there's probably not much I can tell you about tech or even Microsoft at this moment. But what I can tell you about life experiences, you know, as an underrepresented individual. And so I continue to evolve in my conversations and my mentorship and my sponsoring of early in career talent, right? And at the same time, helping build pipelines through some of our ERGs with high school students, because I think we got to start a little bit earlier, and I know we might talk about that later. But one of the programs I've gotten pretty hands-on with is our high school mentorship program from 9 through 12, where we invite diverse members of high school students in our various like offices across the states. This is United States program. To just get a taste of what it's like and to also help open up eyes that when you're talking technology, it doesn't mean you have to just be an engineer. I'm kind of, you know, I'm walking that life, right? And so as I think about, and Cathy and I had this conversation when we prepped for the call, you know, opening up our eyes to the various, and it's not diversity of who we are, but also the diversity of like our learnings and our trainings and our skill sets when it comes to STEM. So I will leave it there.
You've segued us so beautifully into the next question. So I'll go for it here. How do you define diversity and inclusion in the context of STEM education and industry? And why are they crucial for building a robust pipeline? And I'm just going to ask anyone who would like to take this question to take it.
I'll continue and then I'll pass the baton. I mean, so I think we have the basics of like diversity in STEM, you know, from a race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic, but I think we have to start thinking about the intersectionality of all of those. And, you know, same thing with like, you know, inclusivity, right? Just creating those environments where we all can show up as ourselves and feel like we belong. And where we feel valued and energized, and creating an environment where we can thrive in spite of what we look like, how we've been trained, and so forth, but empowered to like contribute our diverse and unique perspectives. And me being a solutioning person, and when I say solution, like problem solving, yeah, no, I solutioned in finance and now I'm solutioning in tech. And so it's how do we, you know, take these concepts of D, E, and I that are crucial for building out like a STEM pipeline, but really like we're solution folks at the end of the day, and we're trying to solve really big problems and at the same time, create greater opportunities and accessibility for that pipeline. So I don't think it's defined like for STEM, is it defined any differently than it would be for another background, you know, that's outside of STEM, but I really truly think we all have to start looking at the intersectionality of kind of like all those verticals that have traditionally defined what diversity looks like.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else want to comment on this or ready to bounce?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take the pipeline side a little bit and be move it towards kind of like grassroots, bottom up stuff that we did in the past and can happen today, and why it's really critical, you know, and why it's critical that, and I don't know everyone that's in the audience, but that everyone participate in this, and tell two quick anecdotes. So one is, when I was a grad student, I got a call one day. At the time, it was really the late Dean Newton, the excellent mentor and role model for many people in the College of Engineering. Many people remember him fondly. And then I got the call and it said, can you go with Dean Newton to McClymonds High School? McClymonds High School, if you know Oakland, is deep West Oakland, predominantly Black high school. And Dean Newton is going to go there and give a talk. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm there. Like, when is it? I think it was the next day or that day. And we went, and he, by his presence, to sit with this science class and tell them whatever, it was like Ask Me Anything, basically. And they were asking him, are you a millionaire? And whatever they asked him, he just answered it with, you know, candor and empathy, and just was present. That same school and Oakland Tech, you know, when I was a grad student, we also did a science fair where we went to the students, and we went to their every other week, went there, and we didn't just go with our underrepresented students from Cal. We invited all students to come be mentors with us. And those students came and met the students from Cal, very diverse group, came and met the students at McClymonds and Oakland Tech and mentored them. And we brought all the students back and had a big science fair in the Wozniak as the cornerstone or the culminating event. And all these things were pipeline, you know, they weren't like, I went and I taught this kid every day until he mastered calculus. It was, I went and I showed the folks there that, you know, you can come to Berkeley, you can come on campus, you belong on campus, the campus can come to you as part of your community, and you can be part of the pipeline. And there's other examples of that, but I thought those two always really, those two elements of it, which was, it doesn't have to be your community that you focus. And if you're from outside the underrepresented community, you can come in and still have this impact and be model the way that there's fluidity between all these communities and intersectionality, as was mentioned. And, you know, this STEM is for everyone, and you're part of everyone. And so I think those, you know, experiences that we can have and give to everyone to go participate in those ways are great. And if we come back later for Pipeline, I do want to highlight a couple of our members and some amazing stuff they're doing. And so if you're other alumni and you hear about these folks out there, support their causes too, but we can come back to that.
Miller, I think go for it, because I don't know how many of the questions we'll get.
Sure. So, you know, I wanted to just say, like, our organization, we do a lot in trying to mentor the undergrads and work with the grad students at Berkeley. But, you know, there's one member, a really active member of the overall, not just Berkeley community, but Kevin Nichols. He has had a multi-year program called Science in the City, and that takes students, mostly underrepresented students from the Oakland, Berkeley area. They go and they do a summer camp at Stanford with a person in the educational Department of Education at Stanford on science. You know, they get to basically try out science for a week. They also have he also sponsors a camping conference. Same idea: get everybody outside of the city, bring in mentors, bring in industry, and teach folks about that. Another alum, Stephanie Espy, did her master's at Berkeley. She's MIT chemical engineering undergrad. She runs STEM Gems. STEM Gems is, if you're on LinkedIn and you see her, you'll see it highlights the work of women throughout many, many industries and what their impact has been, and what their impact currently is. And she does a conference in the Atlanta area to try to bring, all of the women in engineering as role models for young women that may want to go into engineering. So these are like real programs that, these folks, if you're an alum that wants to, donate to people like with their boots on the ground, you can, I can get information out for you on those guys. But they're really like showing and doing the work, in the community with the students. So I did want to highlight those two.
Thank you so much. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump ahead to keep the conversation focused where you've taken it, Miller, on examples of successful initiatives and strategies that you've seen be effective in attracting and retaining members of underrepresented groups in STEM fields, and throw that open to anyone who'd like to answer it. But thank you for getting us into that discussion so well.
I can take a stab at this one. I'll try to do it through the lens of the startup world. In the startup world, you have no resources and you have nothing essentially. And so, as a founder, I think, diversity from a startup perspective is really, really hard because you already have very few choices, and finding diverse candidates when you're hiring life is already really hard, and now like let's make it even harder to try to find diversity. So I think the only thing that I've found to work is nothing really fancy. It's just kind of boots on the ground, LinkedIn, looking for candidates, keeping an ear open, and just seeing like, oh, kind of like very forcefully like poking people like, hey, are you looking for a job, or like, hey, do you want to join a startup? Because I think it's statistically the numbers are, finding diverse candidates is really hard. And, being very truthful here, the top three, Google, Microsofts of the world kind of get a lot of the best talent across the spectrum. And then when you're kind of a startup, how do you compete? It's really hard. And you just have to win them over with just a one-on-one Zoom and just talk about your mission and what you're trying to do. But being very active, you can't be lazy, you can't be passive. Like you have to actively find people. And that's kind of worked for us in terms of like how do you actually make, break out of just the stereotypical engineering hire, but like how do you actually get out? You need to be proactive. You can't be shy. You have to find them and show your interest. I think has worked for us. So nothing really fancy, just boots on the ground and just be proactive and take the active first step, because they're not gonna just come to you if you're kind of a, another startup.
Thank you so much. Anybody else like to address this?
I would just mention historical example. I think Colette's where we first met many years ago, but the Berkeley Edge program, was a great program. It was NSF funded, and we got money to go recruit grad students at the time to come to Berkeley and basically, wine and dine them for a weekend, and then stay on top of that, make sure there was a good yield, and they ended up coming to grad school at Berkeley. And a lot of the focus at the time was also on students from HBCUs. So, people like Dr. Mark McKelvin, who's, went on to finish his Ph.D. in DEIBJ. And I think he was 3 years ago, he was like Black Engineer of the Year award or something for young engineers. So, these are like great programs. Some of them like wax and wane, but the tenor of the idea, like go find the people where they are. I think right now there's a good program going on with the College of Engineering in Tuskegee to bring Tuskegee students during the summer. So just those pipeline and real practical programs, and again, Jean Liu has been a great proponent of all of these and always comes without fail to all the events we invite her to. So I think the spirit in the College of Engineering is really great right now. So, you know, continuing to have those collaborations is really important. But yeah, there's always also like, what's the new idea, right? And I feel like Berkeley is always open to innovate something new as well. So if people have an idea, they can bring it and say, oh, you know, this is what we need to build something better, you know, continuously improve. So I like that spirit. Definitely that part of the Berkeley way, you know, do things. If you don't like it, you can say something, you can get a seat at the table. You don't have to be an antagonist, you know, you can be a collaborator, and it's very open that way.
Thank you so much. I know we've skipped over a question about barriers, but I'm going to try to introduce it a little later because I think there are, you know, Jeff did speak about some of the barriers. But I'd like to pick up on the issue around mentoring that Dean Liu mentioned, and ask if you have any comments on the role of mentoring and sponsorship, and how those play into diversity and inclusion within STEM, and how we can ensure these opportunities are accessible to all.
I'm happy to take it. So, I mean, I think I started off with the importance of like mentorship and sponsorship in this space. And a personal story. Let's see, during my last, I will say what we call connects, because we don't do performance reviews. With my CTO, I looked up and I said, I don't have any mentors. I don't have any sponsors. Everyone that I still speak to for advice and guidance in my career are all external and in the world of finance, right? So what does that look like for me now that I'm in technology here at Microsoft? And so we started to compile a list. The list only landed with like 2 persons, which is totally fine. But there was one person who continued to like pass the baton to other individuals for me to speak to. And I'll say in 30 to 60 days, and we're talking just at the end of the last calendar year, I had more connections, greater connections, but also people willing to guide my career and like just pouring into me in open access. If you can't get on my calendar, ping me and I'll hop off. And so just to now have that accessibility to those individuals, you know, my career's taken off in a very good direction, just for those conversations. So I think we as leaders in STEM, we have to ensure that that accessibility is provided to all from a mentorship and a sponsorship. And real world, having a conversation with someone who I've been mentoring early in career who sits on my former team. And I was just doing a check-in with her, see how things are going. And something hit me and I said, you know what? I have to build out a new team at the top of our fiscal year. What about you? You know, and so it's opening up those doors. And yes, she would fit into like double minority, being an African-American woman. But as I'm having this conversation with her, I'm like, okay, I'm like to build out a new team here. How do I want the makeup of my team to look like? What kind of minds do I want to bring around the table to help me serve this global community? And so it is our responsibility. I go back to what Dr. Liu said. She said a lot of things that resonated with me, but that virtuous cycle that we have to create, and it's part of our responsibility when it comes to DE&I and belonging, right? And so I think, and on the flip side, for, you know, those communities and bodies of human beings who identify as diverse, you should feel empowered, just like I did, to seek and ask for mentorship and seek and ask for sponsorship. It's you know, what's the most I always say someone can say to you is no. And in these days, no one's saying no. People love giving advice, right? So for those on the call, I also challenge you, if there is someone that you look up to, or if there is someone who you know you can learn from, right? And just be like that excited sponge, I like to call it. Go ask them and seek them out. Uh-oh, you're muted, Colette.
It had to happen once, right? Thank you. Thank you so much. I wanted to just get a final thought from each of the panelists on what you see as the next frontier for DEI and STEM, and how you see Berkeley and its alumni playing a role in advancing DEI, you know, on this frontier. And I do want to point out that there are a lot of questions in the chat related to the pushback against DEI nationally, which, you know, goes to, I guess, one of the barriers too. So perhaps if you can think a little bit about that, incorporate that. So, and I know this has to be really brief because the session ends at 6:30. So a quick comment from each panelist would be great. Do you want to? Jeff?
Yeah, I can try. Oh, Jeff or
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I didn't get to see what's in the Q&A about that. That was actually top of mind. You know, there's a lot of pushback nationally in the state of Alabama and other places. I think it's going to propagate. And so, you know, the case that has been made over and over again and research is that diversity for corporations is actually better for your bottom line. I mean, there is research to show diverse thought in many different ways. It's just not about race, but in many different ways, you want to have diverse teams. Diverse teams come up with better solutions, and that's the way to go. That is, you know, race, gender, across the board, everything, right? And there are specific examples where having diverse teams will get you, you know, and not having a diverse team will get you a bad product. Like in the AI space, if you're only training everything on one type of image, you will not be able to recognize other images. And there's a group like Black in AI that's documented those sorts of things, and you can see documentaries about it. So it's kind of imperative to the space of getting, especially as an engineer, getting good engineering solutions to have diversity of thought in the process. And so the case just has to be continuously made and push back against the pushback against DE&I. I think the other real things that we talked about here, the inclusion part, the belonging part, you know, the elements that are really around justice and having people have access to all of this are really critical, and they shouldn't. Those things should not be up for debate necessarily. However you want to say or try to say, oh, there's reverse discrimination or those, you know, kind of fallacious arguments. I would say that's political, but the imperative is to have these teams that are inclusive, diverse, and people that belong and bring their best selves to work and work hard when they're, you know, fully realized in whatever they're trying to do. So for the future, I was really intrigued to hear about Dean Liu talking about the CHIPS Act and this national. I'm in the semiconductor industry, so I really care about that. I see that this idea about diversity, at least me, you know, it's maybe myopic from my industry, but, you know, there are communities that are going to get extremely huge investments in the United States that are diverse communities. Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio area. I met last month. I'm taking up too much time, I apologize, but I met a professor at a community college in Dayton, Ohio. He wants to train his workforce to work at Intel in Columbus and needs to know how to get that off the ground, right? He's been training folks that know how to do, you know, car repair or whatever it is. Now they want to do semiconductor. Like this is really going to happen in the Arizona area, in the Columbus area, in West Lafayette, right? All these things, it needs to come back to, it's going to come back to the United States, and we need to train these workforces. And the workforces by nature, by the location of this industry are going to be diverse, or we're going to be trying to, bring in a lot of talent from outside, and we don't need to do that. We can train folks here.
Thank you. Thank you. Right on point. Jeff, would you like to comment?
Yeah, this is a really good question. It's kind of tough to predict the next frontier. Maybe just speaking from personal experience, I think, again, I'm trying to wear a hat here, coming from the startup world. I think there is definitely diversity in terms of for innovation. It's really important. I have a lot of examples where, I remember coming out fresh out of undergrad, even grad school, you just kind of follow the herd, and everyone's like, go to Google or Microsoft or Apple, go one of these places, right? And everyone's like, all right, let's do what everyone else is doing. But now that I'm on kind of the startup side, you need actually people who kind of buck the trend, who are like, well, what is interesting? Like, what do I want to do? Because a startup, you're always fighting uphill. You need to go against the grain. And so you need that kind of diversity. And if everyone, I've actually interviewed people who are like this, who come from, the FANG companies, and they're just stuck in that world, and they can't think, well, what if I take a risk and I try something new, or actually try to innovate something truly from scratch that not even FANG is trying to do. They're like, well, if FANG's not doing it, then it doesn't matter. And it's like, well, how are you going to invent anything if you're not going to try to do something totally new? And so I think that level of diversity is really important. It's maybe more neurological diversity in terms of like how you think, but to innovate, you have to buck the trend. If you just do what everyone else is doing, what are you doing? You're just making incremental improvements, right? To make radical change, you have to think differently, to quote Apple, ironically. But I'll end my comments there.
Thank you so much. Yes, the Berkeley way to definitely think differently. Keitha.
Yeah, so I like that, think differently. We call it having a growth mindset, right? And so I go back to like that next frontier, I believe, looks like the intersectionality piece across all diverse, I'll say vertical lines. And then there's also, I think, this theme of just promoting and advancing like our cultural competency about our differences that will have a huge impact as we think about STEM and DE&I, and also help us kind of dismantle some of those systematic barriers that have been mentioned throughout the night. And, it's exciting to be part of, Berkeley alum, given, we have engineering on here, we have business, like just diversity of our backgrounds, and as operators in each of our fields, like we're just empowered to like champion that, right? And champion innovative DE&I initiatives, and what does that look like from a research perspective to like landing and executing, be it at a startup, be it at a big tech. And I think Cathy and I had started a conversation around just a better alignment between universities and industry, like corporations, a stronger partnership, I'll say, with and defining those metrics for what success will look like in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Miller, Jeff, Keitha, for your wisdom and your willingness to share, and your candor and all your expertise and experience coming forward to talk about this important topic. I feel very honored to be in your company, and so proud to be a Berkeley alum sitting with you on this call. I really feel very honored to be in your company. I'm going to hand things over to Joanna, to Jojo, who has some closing words for us, but really a big round of applause and thank you to the panelists.
Wonderful. Thank you, Colette. Get my notes up. Good evening once again, and thank you for joining us tonight. I am Jojo Aguirre, she, her. I'm the Senior Program Operating Officer at the Cal Alumni Association, and today I'm joining from the Ohlone territory in Oakland, California. I'm a white woman with curly blonde hair, wearing thick-rimmed glasses, a white short-sleeved blouse, and behind me is a virtual background of the UC Berkeley campus with the sun setting behind the Campanile Tower. I'm grateful once again to be in community with you all to wrap up our Cal for All program for this academic year. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our inspirational alumni speakers and the amazing work being done on campus and within our alumni community. I am truly honored to be part of this program, and I'm grateful for everyone involved with this important series. The Cal Alumni has always existed with one purpose: to serve our Berkeley community. We strive to create an inclusive, vibrant community where alumni worldwide enjoy lifelong relationships with the university. The Cal Alumni Association is an independent, nonprofit membership organization with many programs and departments to fit the needs of our diverse alumni community. As you've heard today, the Cal Alumni Association is committed to ensuring a Cal for all, and this event celebrates and recognizes the work being done by alumni in our community, on the Berkeley campus, and through our alumni chapters. We hope that those in attendance today will leave with more information about what others are doing and how you yourself can be involved. As we wrap up this academic year, we want to reflect on this Cal for All series and what has been accomplished. When we began, we had 3 key goals: broaden alumni engagement, highlight and amplify success stories from our alumni leaders, and strengthen university partnerships and cross-chapter collaboration. When we began this series, we also had a goal to foster a more inclusive alumni community by engaging campus and alumni leaders in discussions around DEIBJ centered leadership. Our goal is to continue these important conversations into the future, so please stay tuned for an announcement of upcoming events that will take place back again in the fall. We believe education to be a lifelong pursuit, and this series has been designed to provide interactive forums for Cal alumni to learn, debate, and discuss. We recorded all episodes and they are available online to watch or rewatch and continue to engage in DEIBJ learning. Tonight's recording will be available in the next few weeks after we've had time to review the captions to make certain that the recording was transcribed accurately to ensure that it is accessible for all. With these 4 events listed on the screen, we have engaged over 800 people through live attendance and through the recordings. You'll see that our inaugural fireside speaker, Dr. Richard Lyons, will now be the new incoming UC Berkeley Chancellor, and we are proud to showcase his outstanding achievements as a first-generation college student. We strive to demonstrate our continued commitment to the unparalleled alumni community. We celebrate lifelong, multifaceted relationships between alumni and our university, relationships which encompass learning, achievement, advocacy, service, philanthropy, and so much more. I want to thank Dean Liu, Dr. Colette Patt, and our alumni panelists for your partnership on this event. I'm grateful for your time and dedication to UC Berkeley and to the Cal alumni community. I want to take a moment to convey my deep gratitude to Cathy Han for her leadership and partnership through this Cal for All series. 2 years ago, Cathy and her team began a gap analysis project to help identify areas of growth and alumni engagement efforts and in our alumni chapter community. The work Cathy did has directly led to the inception and development of this event series that has provided a place to learn from each other and see what DEI-centered leadership looks like. Cathy, truly thank you for your commitment and partnership, and I look forward to our continued work. Please take time to complete the post-event survey that will pop up when the event ends and will also be sent via email. We welcome your feedback so we can continue to make improvements. To learn more about the Cal Alumni Association and our programs and the DEIBJ work being done on the UC Berkeley campus, please visit alumni.berkeley.edu and diversity.berkeley.edu. And now, if you'd like to pull up your smartphone, please scan this QR code if you'd like to support the work of the UC Berkeley College of Engineering. I'll leave it up on the screen for a few moments, and I will end by saying thank you again for joining us tonight. Fiat Lux and Go Bears.